I don't really think it matters.
Okay.
If you want me to testify, I can testify, that I got out of the ICU. I'll testify with you, Cantor. I don't mind.
Sure.
I mean,
I'll put us both forward then. Okay.
I'll be a secondary witness, and I'll just say what I just said here, which is I got out of the ICU. I was informed that he was fine, but people were suspicious of him, PD and such.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, I had no contact with him, did not see him, had no requests for any information from him, to the point where, we all questioned what was going on. Let me see here. I do have 2 numbers for him.
Me too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the whole topic of the court case yesterday.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I tried to call both the numbers I have for him that third meeting where we were like, maybe he just, didn't know where it was, but nothing.
Yeah, I have a text from him 2 months ago. Solomon Walker here. Tried calling to arrange getting keys to my office at City Hall. Let me know if you're around tomorrow. Thanks.
Yeah, I think the last time I actually spoke to him was the day of the shooting.
And then previous to that, I have a text from 3 months ago. Can I speak to you about illegal aid becoming a lawyer? So yeah, I have not heard. He did not reach out to me since the day he basically got elected.
No, yeah, me either.
Okay, so we'll figure that out in court.
Okay.
Next issue. We suspended Solomon for dereliction of duties because he wasn't showing up here. So that made sense to me pending the impeachment, right?
Max has not shown up.
Now, the question is, Murphy has filed an impeachment proceeding against Max and Siobhan. Do we feel that someone filing an impeachment proceeding against someone for alleged... I don't want to put words in your mouth, Murphy. Is it alleged, what basis? What's the impeachment basis? Corruption or something?
Corruption and gross negligence.
Okay, so do we feel that someone...
Corruption and gross negligence.
Good job leaking those documents that got me tortured, by the way, Murphy. Nice gross negligence.
Okay, can we...
I didn't leak any documents.
Let's make progress, guys, please.
Yeah, let's... Okay, so... the question is do we feel that suspension is merited, or do we feel that, along the terms of innocent until proven guilty, given that the allegations are negligence and corruption, which need to be proven, as opposed to dereliction of duty, which is, self-evident, do we feel that Max and Siobhan should be suspended awaiting the impeachment? Second to that, given that any, basically attorney can file an impeachment, do we need to consider what that means? Because if we say that you're automatically suspended pending the outcome of a formal impeachment proceeding, does that mean that people can just maliciously, effectively suspend people by just filing an impeachment proceeding?
Technically, someone has requested impeachment on all of us against the DOC stuff, so we would be shut down completely if that were to happen. I'm against that.
Cornwood, thoughts?
Wait, who the hell's trying to impeach all of us?
The fucking Scotty Bard, I think.
DOC, Scotty,
It's a whole clusterfuck.
It is. It's a fucking mess. Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Okay. So, Glenn, thoughts?
I mean, I agree with Cantor. It's complicated, but they could just shut us all down, just if they felt like it.
Okay, so in the face of impeachment proceedings that merit some kind of provable standard, as opposed to something that is self-evident like dereliction of duties because someone's just not showing up, then we would consider it not to be a suspension while the impeachment was pending.
Or
So-
somebody, yeah.
And I've specifically omitted Siobhan and Murphy for obvious reasons from that discussion.
Okay.
Okay, so that's that hurdle. So now that we have everyone in the meeting that is allowed to be at the meeting based on our discussions, or is, available. Now the next question is, sort of the approach to some of the constitutional issues raised. So there are a number of things that were brought up during the trial with Soze related to jurisdiction and language and things like that.
Oh boy.
The basis of most of his claims is that the Constitution currently reflects Los Santos as the general, term related to the jurisdiction. Now, this is definitely an oversight on my part because, well, go figure. I looked all the way back to, the constitutions from, a couple government failures and restructures ago. And by God, if they all aren't the same. So apparently no one has ever really looked at the fact that Los Santos has been used as a general term for our island, our little nation state here. And apparently Soze is the first person to actually give a shit enough to point this out. So there is, one part of it that is relatively simple fix in which, after this meeting, I'm going to meet with the judges that oversaw that case, and I'm going to direct them to, address that issue or loophole or whatever you want to call it in their formal docket, written out decision. So that will probably be some kind of case law that will interpret and or amend the Constitution, depending on how they see fit. Siobhan, I recognize that you had a piece of suggested legislation in there that did largely the same thing.
I just control F City of Los Santos and replace it with State of San Andreas.
And I noticed also there's an amendment in there about jurisdiction, which is great. So with your permission, I'll go ahead and pass that on to those judges.
Please
and
do.
They can use that as a basis to work from.
Would love that. My permission granted. No problem. Thanks, Greg.
Does anyone have any thoughts, input on the Soze issues of jurisdiction in general, the inadequacies of parts of the Constitution, etc.?
So is this going to imply that we will have separate jurisdictions for shit?
So currently, the way that it is written is that there is, one jurisdiction, and that, one set of laws applies to everything. Now, that is, obviously open to be amended in the future. Maybe we decide that, there should be, council in Toledo or whatever. But given the fledgling state we find ourselves in, it seems prudent for now, at least, to solidify the position we have, right? Which is a governmental body, legislating. The DOJ, basically enacting common law from court decisions. And then, various initiatives that can be passed by civilians regarding, for example, the Bill of Human Privileges, things like that.
Ooh, cops down.
So, I'm just kind of gathering feedback and seeing if anyone has any thoughts, in terms of solving those jurisdictional issues. Now, I've already gone through and solved a couple issues. One of them was the weapons license legislation. Clearly, there were some failures there, or inaccuracies when it comes to being very precise with language. So the references to the civilian class 2 weapons license have been re-added to the penal code. The weapons legislation has been amended to basically be a whole lot more thorough. That includes, descriptors for what you can do with a license, what you can do with a gun, what happens when you lose it, how you lose it, all the different things, protocols, what types of guns you're allowed to own, what things you're not, defining the different types of guns, both in the penal code and the legislation, etc. The second thing that was updated was the FOIA process.
Or Dylan
was in the past something that was in PDSOPs as well as a DOJ document from Malton. That, based on feedback from Nino Chavez, a lawyer, Judge Bailey, and some other folks, has now been put into legislation. So the FOIA process now is a legislated process. The act is adopted and codified by that piece of legislation. And the FOIA system has been defined. There's also an appeals process if they feel that the PD did not, were not forthright with what was requested.
Awesome.
So, Those two
Oh,
things
DRP,
were done
thank you.
yesterday.
Appreciate it.
I've entered the FOIA legislation as well as updated the weapons license legislation. As I said at the beginning of this outset of this council, my intention was not to just simply do what has been done in the past and write things from my seat. However, when issues are pointed out with things like that, then I need to act. So, given that we have some MDT problems right now, let's go
It was his
through
job to
and
pass
talk
that,
about, is
bro.
there anything anyone has that is derivative of any of the issues I've talked about? Is there anything anyone wants to bring up that's deal with like jurisdiction or, you know?
I was just gonna say that as consistency is key. So as long as it's consistent and easy to understand, and if we do create other jurisdictions later, it's easy enough to do so. Like I'm fine with whatever, as long as it's as long as there's no outlying instances of confusing language.
Sure. I agree with that. That's going to be the goal. Does anyone have anything else on jurisdiction or anything like that?
Just the one thing. I did split up on that amendment that you were talking about where I replaced everything. I did just sort of further define the difference between like judicial authority and legislative authority, vaguely related to jurisdiction. I'm not sure if you'd read it. I just wanted to title out that, like, yes, you have the like common law jurisprudence, but also rather than having an implied power and express overtly written out power of judicial interpretation is like the judicial authority. That the constitutional interpretation is the judicial authority. So just letting you know that I threw that in there.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I saw that.
All right, cool. All right, that's it.
So I will be working with that would be Judges Angel and Adams to basically instruct them to utilize their power as judges to effectively amend the Constitution as a result of issues brought up during the case. So for everyone's benefit, just in case people aren't really aware of this, the idea typically would be that the council would legislate and then the courts would interpret legislation, penal code, constitution, and then issue rulings based on their interpretations. And if those interpretations are new, different, novel, whatever, then that becomes, case law, common law, and can also include, for clarification, formal amendments to any legislation, constitution, etc., because the courts have the ultimate
Well,
say
the
in
weapons
terms of
license stuff is
interpreting the
new.
law.
He's bringing this to us, right?
I will talk to them about initiating that. That should help with the jurisdiction issues, loopholes. Now, a couple of things that have been brought to me that I'm going to lay out. And this is something that we'll need to work on probably before the next meeting. So I'll endeavor to do that, as well as anybody else who wants to give it a shot. One of the other issues that was brought up as a result of, this whole FOIA thing, I'm talking to Nino and a bunch of other folks, is the fact that, there are some things that, due to everything getting derailed, are kind of piecemeal right now. One of them, for example, is that we fired all the DOC, but the legislation still exists. So I would suggest a vote now to repeal the DOC legislation.
Yeah, that seems fair. That's a good idea.
Big eye.
Because if we're going to fire Bobby and Carmine, then there's no real point in having the structure, because all of the people that we hired were only
Council's
done
definitely made
as
legislation, guys.
subjugate employees underneath Bobby and Carmine.
They've definitely made legislation.
So
this term
if
has
they
been
no
rough though with the
longer,
shooting. You're not wrong.
Are running the prison, then it seems sensible to repeal that legislation. Any thoughts on that?
I don't disagree.
Just their lawyer's gonna say it's retaliatory and it's spoliation.
Well, we can just table it until the resolution of the case. That's fine with me. I have no issues with that.
I'm not saying that it is or it isn't. I'm saying that's probably what the
I agree, and I don't want to act improperly or do anything that could influence the case. So
when I get a new
I think
DOC,
it's probably fair that we table that until that.
It was made
but
clear
I would
to
just
us
want it
that
on
the
record,
federal
especially
government
Ms.
didn't want it.
Domino's notes there, that the council is being, active with these items. We're just acting out of caution and not doing it right now because of the pending case.
Yeah, we're acting with good faith.
Seems
Okay.
I think
fine
that's
with
good.
me.
Yeah,
All
sounds
right. The other thing I have is going to be a series of things. And these are things that we've discussed as judges, and I'm just going to make you guys aware of them and sort of where the thought process is right now. So some of the things that were raised
Who decides to make it laws
as
and
a
give it to the funniest
result
people on the server?
of
Crane.
Soze's
It's Crane's idea. I think it's hilarious.
steroid-ridden diatribe were that's factual, by the way.
Yeah, it was
Him and
good.
Angel used to do steroids together. I saw them.
Oh,
They were doing
that's
them in the
pretty cool.
MRPD parking garage about 5-6 years ago. So not defamation or anything, provable, untrue. When Soze was bringing up his complaints, several of the things that he brought up had to do with items in the Constitution that deal with due process and things that are not quite established. One of the things that he brought up was that
Crane is not part Fed. Feds is like
in the Constitution,
management.
it does
Crane is
have
not.
example of terms for bail and things like that. But it also, has like the standard conditions of parole. And it talks about parole as a system and, the basic conditions. And the conditions talk about, checking in with people and things like that.
People like John F. Government.
Now, it does say that,
I
this
don't
could
think
be
John
from
F.
the
Government was
courts
really a
or,
Fed, but it is
another
funny.
authorized force. But
Or
it
other
mentions
courts.
repeatedly, God damn it, Corwood. But it also repeatedly mentions
Hand of
a
the
parole
king? I can see
officer,
that,
an
yeah.
assigned parole officer. And this is something that, I wrote into the Constitution thinking that, well, it would get run with at some point, but it never really did. So, feeling the need to now kick the horse in the ass, I'm going to sort of suggest, given that the sheriff's office is out there in Blaine County, right next to the prison, Cornwood, how would you feel
It's true, it's never
about
happened.
someone in your department? Doesn't matter who it is right now, but maybe just taking on the task of proposing a system of assigning parole officers and handling that. Because if we do have people that are sentenced to these long prison terms, it tends to reason that they should have someone checking in on them, making sure they're not getting into crime, making sure they're keeping their nose clean, all that, right?
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
you know-
Only issue that I would have is, hell, it really just comes down to if we got enough units.
Well,
So far,
yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, I think so far the BCSO has fleshed out a lot more quickly than was originally, thought that it was going to happen. So, hell, I'd say that it might be pretty likely that we could do this. Send maybe a couple officers in there, assign them to go check in on them and whatnot, and make sure there ain't no crazy shit happening in the jail.
Well, the
or whatever.
thing is that it's only for people who are paroled, right? So after they serve their sentences and they get out, we just need parole officers who would be assigned to go be the ones that check in with these guys. So it would be on a case by case basis. It would be,
okay.
It would be like so basically the judge goes up there to sentence someone, says, Murphy Braun, you've been found guilty of philandering. Your sentence is 4 days in jail and 4 days parole. Your parole conditions are the general conditions of parole as evidenced in the Constitution is listed. I'll read them out for you now. Reads out the conditions. I'll also put this on the docket. You will be assigned a parole officer. They will be in touch with you within 24 hours. And so my thought is not that we need to have active parole officers because we don't have people on parole all the time, right? It's actually pretty rare. So my thought process is why don't and you seem to know a lot of people in PD, both in the sheriff's and the LSPD. Maybe we could just have a list of people who are interested in doing the work on a reserve basis.
Yeah, I think that'd be wise, and I'd agree. I think it shouldn't be limited to the sheriff's office because I think there's some LSPD officers that probably interested in as well.
We've done it that way before in the past. It works out pretty good. The people who want to do that, basically, to get some time off, have the ability most of the time, and it's not a big stress on any.
And I will communicate to the judges that maybe we can incentivize parole over prison time if the person agrees to these conditions where they get
But
assigned a
Lizzie
parole officer or
only
meet with
having
somebody.
to be checked in a couple
So we'll
years only
incentivize the
lasts
program,
one
the
time, yeah,
relationship, the nurturing,
pretty
all the
much.
kind of stuff that you're good at, Cornwood.
Uh-huh.
And maybe you can recommend people, or maybe just come up with a list. Maybe you talk to people around the departments, figure out who's interested in that kind of stuff. And you get, the DOJ a list, and this becomes like, just a document we keep in like, the DOJ documents or whatever. And it just, has a list of officers who are, interested and available for parole officer duties, what shift they work in. So then when the judge goes to sentence someone, they can look at the person and say, what hours are you usually around? Okay, shift 1. Okay. Here's the officers interested. Do you regularly see any of these officers? Then read out to the person, list of officers. And maybe the person, could pick their parole officer.
That's cool. I like that.
And that way it's a collaborative process. The judge and the person are interested. They know they're going to be around roughly the same times. And then, we get something out of it. Maybe we keep them out of jail. Maybe they reform. Who knows?
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's a
think that sounds
good
great.
idea.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't, given all the MDT issues, let's take a vote on codifying the parole process. So I'm taking notes right now, just on a notepad here, and I'll put all this formally once the MDT is working better. So why don't we, just basically vote now on just codifying the agreement and setting out Cornwood as sort of the marshal of parole officers, and he'll be the the overseer of that whole thing. Steal a word from Soze. And then Cornwood can in good time, maybe by next meeting, maybe a little bit longer, just get us a rough list of people from different shifts who are interested in doing the job. And then we can, go from there and establish protocols with the DOJ and see if we can get the program moving. Anybody opposed to that?
No, that sounds great.
No, I
That
think
sounds
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
Ironically
Okay.
enough, I'd already kind of been doing this. I
Yeah.
signed
Perfect.
On Fire to Soze. So
Oh, great. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Good.
Sick.
So, okay, perfect. So we're on the same page. So I
Yay.
will, I'll go ahead and, I'll work on getting that put together in terms of, the codification and everything and getting it written down. But either way, that'll be something that Cornwall will move forward with. He has the authorization,
Just stay with
and
Cornwood.
I'll talk to the
Who
judges
knows?
on
We'll
the
figure it out
DOJ
as we
side
go.
about incentivizing it. Murphy can maybe disperse that, info, or talk to some lawyers about, getting their clients to utilize that kind of program.
Yeah, no, perfect.
sounds
Okay.
great.
Next of the things on the list, sorry, I know I got a lot here. Next thing that was brought up in terms of the Constitution, in terms of how things function.
Mm.
Sorry, just reading through my notes to make sure I get everything. And then one thing we are also working on is creating a and I've talked about this a couple times now, trying to make it so that the MDT has a section where common law and court advisories and such can be published. So this would be just like a DOJ public facing DOJ section. That's not legislation, right? Because legislation,
I think that's
stems
needed.
from the council, right?
Yeah.
This would be a DOJ advisories. So we issue clarifications on things like loans, for example, we did in the past.
Mhm.
Yeah.
As well as like common law. And this way everyone is aware of and can read any outcomes from court
This is
cases that
good.
affect the law.
Woo.
Let's check on our MDT.
Sounds great.
Notepad.
I
Choose
will
/e notepad and then pull out
endeavor
our
to get
MDT.
that working. I know it's been discussed several times. As soon as the technician has the bandwidth to deal with it, I'll get it done.
Yeah. He can't be
Right
PD
now, obviously,
liaison.
we just got to get this thing working
Again.
in the first
obviously,
place.
yeah.
Yeah, once it's working, I do agree that we should definitely try to leverage it in ways that benefit the public a bit more. For sure.
Okay. So let's then. I think we've handled all the procedural shit. Let's
Is this the
go
best council
down the
meeting ever?
list.
Oh, we're making progress.
I guess we'll go clockwise. Cornwood, you got anything to bring up?
Yeah, I got a couple things here. Go through my notes. Let's see. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. I don't know if I got a frog in my throat or something. Okay. So first thing I want to talk about is something that's come up several times, and we've gotten inconsistent information on it as far as uh, if it does work this way or does not. But that's statute of limitation and warrants. A lot of people have been asking if you put out a warrant for somebody and the warrant
boy.
goes beyond the statute of limitations, does it extend the statute of limitations?
No.
If it does
No,
not,
it does not.
I
No.
wanted to propose legislation that would allow that to happen.
No.
There'd be some stipulations to this. One of which would be this would be
No.
a non-renewable warrant
No.
outside of any normal situation in which you'd put out an infinite warrant. So, like if, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Canner,
No.
with the ICU situation,
Mhm.
if somebody goes to sleep in the ICU, and that would be an infinite warrant regardless, right? Or capital charge, anything like that. But this would basically allow us to clean up the confusion and the frustration that comes from I
Yep.
think all
Unanimous
sides
vote for parole.
whenever there's a warrant,
We
there's
like
not
the
a
parole
warrant,
system,
there's
just no one's,
investigation going on, something gets put up at the
no one's
last
done it
second,
yet,
shouldn't be
so-
happening anyway.
But it's cool.
But
It's
at
cool they
least
are.
having something written down and having some consistency there, I think would help everybody.
But why are you putting stuff at the last second?
Well, some of these investigations take a long time, right? Some of them take a long time, and they can't be followed up on for whatever the hell reason.
Corwin, can I tell you something?
Go ahead.
5 or 6 years ago, we had a statute of limitations that was 60 days,
Oh,
and people still filed things on the last day.
Yup.
So
yeah, I mean,
I'm just going to tell you right now, the reason, and this is why I had to write FOIA into legislation, because and this is a kind of a sidetrack, but I'm making a point here. The Malton thing said that in order to have a FOIA slam dunk guaranteed given to you with no questions asked, the incident had to be 4 days old, had to be not investigative, not active, blah blah blah. Right? There were a bunch of conditions. But
Parole
what
essentially
people
is just
read
someone
and
checking in
interpreted
with
from
them,
that
right?
MPD was
It's still the same requirements. just
I'm
someone
not giving
actually
out
checks
any
in.
FOIAs unless it's been 4 days and it's not investigative and whatever. So it went from this is the way where you get a guaranteed FOIA delivery to I'm
These are
not
the things-
doing it
yeah.
unless it meets this. And so
Right,
what I'm
right.
trying to
Well,
insinuate
people
here
engage
is
in
that
bad faith with it.
people look at something like statute of limitations and they don't go, well, 30 days is the maximum amount of time I have to press charges, but that, should really only be in like a really dire circumstance, and I should endeavor to press them as quickly as possible.
Right.
Instead, people go, well,
Yep,
I got
yep,
30 days to
yep.
press charges. What day is it? Oh, day 24. I got 6 days.
Right.
And so what I'm saying is that I think that we should encourage the opposite mentality,
So
which is, people
Uh-huh.
should endeavor to do things.
as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I had a meeting about this just to I guess respond to that. I had a meeting about this a couple days ago. I think this was at the Shift 1 meeting where I brought that up specifically because this has happened several times where people wait till the last second on shit. And now sometimes, and in fact, from my understanding, it legitimately took this long to figure some of this shit out. And I know I approved a warrant that was on the last day, and I would not have approved it if it wasn't for something else that happened just a couple days prior that led me to believe that, okay, this is something that we should actually chase, and there's like a breadcrumbs here. Otherwise, you got to let this one go. It was to the officer that did that wanted to press it. So I said, you know what? There's something there. Go ahead and send it. I think what should happen in all these cases,
I love
where
Coyote. Don't
somebody's
get me
trying to
wrong,
push a
guys. I
warrant at
love him,
29 days,
but he could have asked
I
for
think
help,
that's
man.
up to us as command and high command to say, you know what?
He saw it.
Not to be an inhibitor,
But also,
sometimes
he
you
could have
gotta
done this
you gotta
better.
make an executive decision there and say this is not one that you should have had this sooner. If it's not legitimate, then
Mhm.
I'm not signing off on this. But But if that happens under this legislation, it's no questions whatsoever. That warrant is out. That warrant is over. This thing is done. You can't go back to it. And then there's no more like dead period between that 30 days and 32 days maybe when that warrant ends. Where people keep asking about shit. I don't know.
So it's in the right place.
So,
Oh, agreed. I love Coyote so much. He's great.
What do you think is the real root of the issue, Cornwood? Do you think the people just misunderstand how things work? I mean,
I think it's
I'll
a
be
little bit
honest with
everything.
you, from the DOJ perspective, right? Because
No, he should have gotten help too.
put the
You're
cards
not
on the
wrong.
table.
Like he should have like
From the
been
DOJ
offered
perspective,
help. Been yeah, no, you're
this
not wrong.
issue with Barry Benson,
It's not only on him.
right?
Oh,
Really felt like to us that PD effectively didn't get their shit together. No one pushed the arrest warrant. No one gave a shit and actually like went through and issued the arrest warrant, despite having the evidence.
So he's like
then,
9 arts. Hey, you're
an
not
officer
fucking
did give
wrong.
a
What's
shit,
Siobhan here? She has not been
then thought
impeached
to
yet.
himself, well, if I file
And
an
might not
arrest
be.
warrant and it's out
We'll
of
see,
the
we'll
statute
see.
of limitations like 2 days after I file it or a day after I file it, well, then I'm going to get screwed because we're not going to catch him in one day and it's going to run the statute of limitations.
I love
and then,
Coyote, guys,
the
so
arrest
much.
warrant's
But he
invalid.
has fucked up for sure.
So if I put it on the docket, then it kind of freezes time, and I found a loophole to the whole statute of limitations.
I don't think he
issue.
should be fired for it or anything. I think he should
And to me, in the
be
DOJ,
expected to learn from it.
we've had
But,
a long-standing
but
policy
they also
that
couldn't
we do
let
not
his cases
docket
go,
normal quote-unquote charges, because otherwise police could, in theory, never reach a statute of limitations on a charge as long as they just put something up on the docket.
right.
Because then they could amend their filing and include the evidence later and attach more witnesses later and all that, which, by the way, is one of the things Soze complained about with due process, where he got put on a hold and the judge approved the extension on the 24 hours to 72. And it's, the Constitution says within 72, there has to be a filing on the docket. And there needs to be due process so that when the person is actually put on the hold, not investigative, but for the HUT, because the HUT's approved, due process says they got to get to see the evidence against them. So if PD gets this, docket filing up there, but doesn't attach all the evidence, then it's kind of like a loophole where they get like extra time.
Oh, they don't have a
But
time
this
requirement.
person's
That's
rights are then
true.
violated
We
because
always
they don't
try
get
to get them
confront the
quicker.
evidence against them in
When
the
they're
appropriate
requested and
manner
then
and
like
time.
a judge is pinged,
Right, I see what you're
it
saying.
usually doesn't take very long unless
it's
we're all
kinda,
conflicted.
to me, it kind of feels like a moral issue where I would, and any other reasonable person, Cornwood, would agree with you and the rest of PD, in that morally, it does seem wrong that, someone gets away with a crime because, it doesn't get investigated or whatever. But although something may feel wrong morally, we can't jeopardize
I
our
don't
due
disagree,
process and
Blanks.
system
I think
of law
keeping it simple would be best for me
know,
personally, but
to get the bad guy
if some
just
people
because
want
we,
it to be
feel
more
like
complex,
it.
then we'll,
Unfortunately, one of the hardest
figure it
things
out.
about the law is that it has to be fair to everybody. So sometimes it helps you get the bad guy, and sometimes the bad guy walks scot-free and laughs in your face.
Yeah, I mean that's just how it goes. I mean I understand all that. The reason why I okayed this was, and I wasn't going to, but the reason why was there was another circumstance of the exact same thing happening with Barry Benson, and I mean, I'm just speaking out here. It's same exact thing. 911 call, Barry Benson. Wish I could be there for you, TJ. I'm like, okay, this some bitch is, he
doing
didn't
it
get caught
again.
last month, and here you go. It's he's sending it again on damn Ursula. So
There are people who
shit.
abuse. Oh,
Okay, yeah. Look, this
No, you're not
guy's
wrong.
asking for it. As far as I'm concerned, you're starting to mess with people, government officials, whatnot, or government employees. So that's the reason why I okayed it, because I thought this was one of them times where shit, why not?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I agree with you, 99%. This was just that one other time to me, and that's when this that's basically when this legislation would be used. what I would suggest, if it starts getting abused and all of a sudden it's happening all the time, people are putting out warrants at 29 days. I mean, I would.
So what is the exact function of the legislation? You go over it again.
Basically, if you put out a warrant and that warrant extends past the
This is
30-day
such a civil
statute,
meeting so far. I need
then
Siobhan and Murphy to
the
yell at each other
statute would
more.
be extended until the end of that warrant. But then, as soon as that warrant expires, you can't apply to, you can't ask for the warrant to be renewed or anything like that. The only way that could happen is if it's a just standard infinite warrant, like the ICU situation we talked about, or capital charge,
Right.
things like that. But normally, you can request for a warrant to get extended. But in this case, you would not be allowed to do that. It would just be the normal.
Wow.
Oh boy.
Wow.
That's ironic. So yeah, as far as I was concerned, that some bitch was asking for it. So I said, you know what? Shit, go ahead and send it. We'll I'll approve the warrant on that. You got your PC here. Send it.
I think the issue is that they're already waiting until the very, very last second. Do we really want to encourage that even more? Like, the Solomon charges, there was meant to be charges pressed alongside this impeachment that we're talking about. I was called in by Coyote the very final day. I didn't think anyone was even looking into it anymore. And suddenly he drops, hey, you still down to testify? And I got called by Uriel like half an hour to the storm at the end of the day, asking if I'd still be willing to as well. I think by that point it was probably out of statute of limitations, to be honest. But like, why does this keep happening?
Case in point.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are.
Yeah.
I
Like,
think
as far as I'm
there's-
aware, they had
go ahead.
not found any new information about that Solomon case in weeks. So I don't really know why it's at until that last day.
So, well, that's the thing. There was another shooting that occurred with the exact same.
No,
shit
not
going
that
on.
one. Not the one I'm referring to.
Oh, the
is
initial.
the case against Solomon.
Talking
Not,
about the Solomon
Yeah,
yes.
the initial. Oh, yeah.
accessory or whatever.
Yes, exactly. That was waited until the last second, even though I don't know why it was. They already had.
Yeah, I don't know why the hell
records.
they
We
told
already
about
had
it.
all that.
I asked him about
Yeah.
it, and he was still working on the. He had too much on him, and he didn't know how to prioritize. He
Okay.
prioritized poorly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
and
I like
had no
Coyote a
concept of
lot.
Time management skills.
Yeah, but we just
That would be
shouldn't
my
be
understanding.
actively encouraging that, I guess, is my thing. I like him a lot.
Yeah,
It does
I
seem like
think-
he was in a rough spot, but like we don't want to
He
just
was.
condone it by legislation.
I think that is on us as command and high command to
Okay.
to step in and correct that behavior, more so than using this legislation as a crutch. But this legislation is going to be, 'cause this
Admittedly,
has come up a few times. Like, it ain't
no
just
one
me.
else was looking into
I
it.
mean,
So
people
Coyote
asked
just
about it
tried,
several
right? And I can
times.
respect that.
I just think it'd be nice to have a clear cut. Hey, this is how it works. Period. Point blank. End discussion. And that's it. If this is something that is abused, and we hell, I would communicate that to command and high command. If you're approving a warrant on something that's in day 29, it better be a big ass deal. Because I'll be honest with you, if the news ain't picking up on it, then you
Well,
probably don't
I
need
mean,
to be
let's
Okay.
let's call a spade, Cornwood. If something happened 29 days ago, there's almost no reason that it should be getting pursued on that 29th
hell,
day.
who gives a shit? Hey, hell, I get that.
Well, it just not even that. I'm not saying who gives a shit. I'm saying the circumstances I can come up with to justify why something would have to happen on the 29th day are extremely few, right? Like maybe, for example, someone gets murdered in cold blood, the PD have no leads, and then on the 29th day, someone gets arrested robbing a bank, and they're dumb enough to, like, while police are chasing them, run into their house. Police then hot pursuit, raid the house and find the hot gun from that murder. So then maybe I could be like, hey, we had no leads, and now all of a sudden we have a lead and we know who did it, so we have to file these charges.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I could understand that, but absent that kind of very unique circumstance, it really just feels like we're just putting a band-aid on people not doing their job.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I look, I want to enable those rare circumstances. But gosh, like I said, you know, even in that rare circumstance that I just
It's a
described,
shame
that would be a
PBO's more
docket
competent than half
filing
the
because
police.
it would be a
He's
capital
doing
case,
great.
right?
Right.
He
right.
just
But I
needs
can't
to
for
learn
the
how to
life of
lock
me
it
think
in
of
and
a fucking
execute.
circumstance that would merit, you know, like we're talking about you know, Ursula getting shot, right? And that, you know, that's awful and shouldn't happen. But are we really gonna make an exception of like our entire system of justice to enable the police to hunt for somebody who shot somebody a month ago for 3 extra days?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I
probably
see what
not.
you're saying.
Yeah.
It's tough. I'm right there with you morally. Hell, you know, shit.
Kitty.
At a certain point, I just wish that we could, you know, hell, we just, when people come into town, there should be a picture of, you know, a giant pit of coals. And it should be like, you do any of these crimes, you walk the coals. You know what I mean?
Hell, I
Like,
would love that shit. I would.
yeah, I'm down for that shit. You know, because I
Mhm.
think, you know, you pay the consequences up front. You know what they are up front, and therefore when the time's to come to pay them, nobody's surprised,
We're
right?
fixing it now, Flip.
But it ain't like
we
that.
talked about it already.
And I just don't know if I can justify giving, you know, people an out on this shit, because then it just God.
Well, I
And it
mean,
just becomes a fucking habit at that point. It's like I told you, it's like this FOIA shit. Then all of a sudden,
30,
it's
not
like,
since the case.
well,
The
guys,
case is kind of what determined
you
it.
know, well, I got to write this
Yeah, if it
arrest
changes it
warrant
before the
but,
trial, then that fucks up the trial.
Well, I got, you know, there's like 4 days in the statute of limitations. Well, that's tough, you know.
yeah, I mean, we could always repeal it if we think the PD is abusing it. We just have to vote to repeal it, right? Just like the DOC legislation.
What took so long in Coyote? I don't know. Don't know on that one.
I know they're going to.
I think he
Yeah,
was
I mean,
overcooking the.
They may, but I think it's a command high command issue, right? Because we're the ones approving.
He was
warrants.
overcooking the case
so
a
we need
little
to not
bit.
let that happen.
Imagine the rage if it changed it
But
before
you
the
just
trial.
got to do it
Bro,
within 30
seriously.
days instead of 33 or 34 days.
Yeah. 30's
I
a
mean,
long
I feel
fucking
like
time.
There's
Yeah.
You just need to
always gonna
stop
be
shoving
I mean, I agree.
Hold on. How about this? How about this?
There's
let's
so
do
many
this.
people just talked
Why
at
don't
once. I
why
hated
don't
it.
we do this?
I just
Why don't we table the issue? And why don't we?
without Bailey, the Constitution would have been corrected last week. True.
And I'll
Fuck
promise
Bailey.
you this, Cornwood.
But not fuck Dog Wizard.
Let's
We love
say
Dog
for
Wizard.
some reason
But fuck Bailey.
you don't get voted in as liaison again, which I doubt it.
What the
Yeah,
fuck?
Well, you are
won't
high
vote again.
command, but
So high command,
What?
but
What's that?
let's just
What's that
say
fucking
this.
shade?
Why don't we do this? Let's table the issue.
What the fuck?
And why don't you do this for me? How about in the last 3 weeks of your term, you look for me for any situation that your legislation would help, right?
Well,
And,
special warrant. I still
if,
think like
there are
there's no
situations you can bring to
necessity
me,
for it.
you know, in the next 3 weeks or whatever, or historical ones where you can show me that, you know, this is a good reason to enact this kind of legislation. Here's
the
what
thing
here's
is,
a
right,
situation that would help.
They already had proof against Barry for the
And, you
Solomon
know, I can
case.
look into
We
that
already
situation,
did.
and it didn't.
They could
go
have
to
pressed
30
those charges
days
at any
because
point.
Of,
The
know,
Ursula
someone
thing
fucking
made it
up or
a case
command,
where
you know, ignoring
it
it,
was
or
now
people not
2
doing their
attempted murder,
job.
but they didn't need the Ursula
Then I'll
thing.
submit the
They really
legislation
didn't.
myself. But
Okay.
I gotta tell you right now,
I mean, it's
the
a rare
examples
one.
that we're working from, I think the hard truth of it, and I know that you're the kind of person who's not going to talk bad
I don't
about
disagree,
anybody, so I'll
Blanks,
do it
man.
for you.
I think keeping
I
it
think
simple is the
truth
best thing.
is that
Thank
the
you. You're not
situations
wrong.
that happen that
It
we're
isn't a real
talking
job.
about
It's fair. So a blender on
are
PD,
a
yeah.
systemic series of failures
Which isn't anyone's
on the
fault.
PD's side,
I love Coyote for the record.
where
always,
a bunch of people
it
didn't
is
do
tough
their
sometimes.
job and or didn't do their job properly. And so you got
Oh, he doubts
this
CW
fucking
won't be
young
voted? Oh,
buck
okay,
running
okay. I
around
thought
trying to juggle
he said, I
everything
doubt he would be voted. I
who
was like,
is just
oh my
not,
god.
not equipped. And
You
maybe
just
no
ain't
one's
there.
equipped to juggle that much bullshit, right? There's
Yeah,
no
it's
slight
just-
against him. I'm just
Yeah,
citing a
agreed.
fact here.
Mhm.
It's not a judgment. It's not a personal thing. I'm not insulting the person.
No, he's great,
I'm
but
just
yeah,
saying
this was rough.
perhaps this is a system of circumstance. And perhaps legislation is not going to solve that
Mhm.
because the circumstances are not about, problems with procedure, but rather people. And so why don't we try to see
Hotberry with
if
the hot gotta let
which
him
one it
go?
is first?
What?
You know what I mean?
That's insane.
Yeah, no, I think
didn't
that's
even know
fine.
that. That's insane.
I mean, I have at least one that comes to mind immediately, or one other one that comes to mind
It's
immediately.
actually fucking
But
insane.
if we just want to set this aside, we can just and see what happens. Because I do think it's pretty rare that this legislation would
You'd want to work at the
be
hospital or
actively
at
being
SBS Granada?
used. Right.
I do both of those.
This would just
so that's a
help
lot of
cover
fun.
those times that it does.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, that's something we can talk about separately too, because like I
What's
said,
worse? Oh
um,
no. Oh no.
I'm on your side morally.
Your team Soze?
Yeah, I think
I
maybe we
played the
table that
judge
for a
that
little
found
bit and,
Soze guilty
you know,
the first time.
we'll see what shakes out
so
when we
that-
discuss it separately.
But it is complex.
Do you have anything else to propose, Cornwood?
The other one is that strike point
I know,
system
I
for
watched-
street racing we talked about.
I
Oh,
mean,
right,
I
right.
think it is complex. You're not wrong.
So we said we didn't want to do VAF points because they would overlap and it would get up there too fast. And I personally believe 3 is too little. I think it, listen, some of these guys, they go out there and they got fast cars and shit, I get it. Okay.
3 is
You want to
too
go out
much.
and you want to send it a little bit. So I said, we come up with a new strike system.
I know. That was a fun case.
This new strike system would be
I like Soze though. It's been fun.
I wanted to call it the
Even if I
the
personally think there aren't
stoppage
these
of
issues.
street racing infrastructure. And the point is
The
that
roleplay
we
that's been
want
fun.
to stop these guys over time from using their vehicles for street races. You'd give them,
Ooh, not
I
street
said,
racing.
somewhere between 6 to 8 strikes.
Everything needs to be aired
Each
out.
time
That's
they're
fair.
caught with a street racing charge, we'd put a strike on their vehicle, street racing strike. So they get that
Cornwood, does
strike.
street racing make you depressed?
No, not necessarily.
You know what your acronym spells out, right?
SSRI.
Yeah, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's hilarious.
That's kind of funny.
Anyway,
Oh
I
my
wasn't sure if you
God.
were making a point with that or not.
No, that's just kind of how it
I'm
happened.
sure you were just saying street racing makes you depressed. I was like, oh, yeah, I get it. They are
No,
assholes.
Yeah, me
Maybe
too.
that's the other
Me too.
thing.
They are assholes.
Yeah, I mean, they're just running over everybody. So somebody's getting depressed. So, or hell, maybe they'll be depressed after they get enough strike points.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, I
Hey,
was
maybe
thinking,
if you get convicted of street racing, you're mandated to go on SSRIs.
yeah, you're also
Maybe you'll
convicted of
stop
depression.
seeking a thrill then.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
That's so rude.
Yeah, it
I'm
works out.
sorry.
Make me feel like my
It's
skin
just
is
funny.
crawling.
I can't.
Well,
that's
Easy
interesting.
digs are great.
So I guess I'll never be a street racer then.
Anyway,
I would love to be a
so
straight
how
racer.
many strikes
Right.
do you think would be like appropriate?
I don't think it should be too little because some of these guys,
Crane's
they,
a big razor hater.
they get
That's
excited, they
fucking
got
funny.
fast cars, they want to go send it. And look, I understand, but there's got to be a line here. I do think it should be probably. It's really damn hard to catch these guys, and it's really damn dangerous. I get it, but if we're seizing the vehicle altogether, I think it should probably be greater than 5 or 6. I was thinking maybe up to 8 even. I don't want it to be like 3. I think 3. Now I don't know how, because here's the thing: I wasn't around when street racing was real big years ago. Street racing became a huge pandemic after I left, so I don't know how often we catch these fellas. And I heard that it is hard as shit to catch these guys to begin with, and it's already in current state of things. I don't even think we caught one.
I don't
We've
really
seen
want to.
So
I'm not looking for
what
someone
I
to
think we
replace
can do
Candace Jobman.
is it might be better to start with a low number with this legislation, and then over time we can amend it and we can raise it if people are getting If there's a whole bunch of strike points going out early on, then I say shit. We can knock it up a little bit and say it's like 8, going up from like 5 or 6, just depending on how much is happening.
What if instead it was like a cooldown? So it's like you're flagged as a street racer, and like you got to go 30 days without, and you're flagged as a street racer. Maybe you get like more fines for wreck driving and speeding and shit.
Mm.
It might be like more
Yelling at
simple
kids
than
to get
like
off his grass.
trying to like
Absolutely.
part out how many strikes.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I think it might be more complicated to find them more for reckless driving and whatnot. For like their traffic citations are, 50%.
Well, if you have the vehicle like logged, right, like that it's been caught in a street race, then yeah, like it would just be like a multiplier.
Yeah, but in the way that we cite people, you see what I'm saying? Yeah, you could do it manually.
Hey. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. They knocked something down. It's fine.
I mean, I will say this: if you get your ass caught like 8 times, hell, even 5 or 6 times street racing in a vehicle, that's dangerous as shit. You probably shouldn't have that vehicle. You probably are not. It's like negligent ownership of a vehicle at that point.
Shouldn't even be street racing. You're probably pretty fucking bad at it.
Yeah, hell, you probably shouldn't be driving.
Well, hold on. We don't gotta judge people. No one taught me to drive. I don't really understand the rules of the road, so I take a lot of shortcuts. But it seems to work out well for me.
Yeah, well, hell, I mean, you ain't street racing, so it's okay.
I would. I fucking love my car. I'm
Okay,
not gonna
well,
lie.
never
That might be me breaking bad.
I'm worried about this applying to
drive
people who
fast
just
as
happen
hell.
to drive really fast.
Oh yeah. Oh, you talking
Yeah.
about anyone in particular there, Siobhan?
Nope, I have no concern about any particular human beings. I'm just concerned about the people who drive fast in general.
I'm also a person who drives fast in general.
Okay, great. Yeah,
So
I
okay,
was talking
okay,
about
Linda.
myself. Okay, myself and Cantor.
I guess yeah. How do you like? Is it if you're charged with a street racing charge, it like as a modifier after the fact or something, where you get like more fines? How exactly? I guess it could work.
I mean, the point would be is, I mean, nothing would happen until you get all your strikes, and then
Okay.
then your vehicle will get seized. And then hell, you want a new vehicle, go buy yourself a new one. Now I think it's this has been brought up to me.
One
This
second,
actually,
I gotta be in my head for 30 seconds. Can we take like a 1 minute?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
you know
sure.
what?
Oh,
I
that sounds
very
great.
quick
Yeah,
breather.
it's
Very quick breather.
Okay, but can we make it 120 seconds?
okay,
Yeah.
well, 140.
140
Okay.
sounds good. All right.
140. Starting
Okay.
now.
Okay. I'm gonna go get water.
I don't even own a car.
Proud of you, Glenn. He fucking kills me every time he talks. I'll be right back.
So hold on a second. Are you telling me they're losing their cars for speeding, or is that your goal? Really strong meeting so far. Everyone keep up the good work.
You too, Glenn.
Well, thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn.
Okay, so can you guys explain to me how these
Oh, I'm
car
back.
points work? I don't
guys.
understand it.
So
for
I
all the
was told
followers
this is
again,
something
by
that
the way.
happened years ago, where these vehicles would get strike points for street racing, and then they would be seized if they were used too much, because it's like, oh look, it's this car. Okay, clearly this guy has this car and he's running into people and he's causing all kinds of mess, destruction, all kinds of bullshit in the city. And this person they should not own this vehicle when it gets to a certain point.
Okay. Okay, so there's not a point system on the car specifically. You want there to be a point system, and the only way to lose a car right now is violent felonies, correct? With
Correct.
the car. Okay.
Now, what this would do is obviously we're stopping these guys from using
That is
these
my inner
vehicles for
voice
street
whenever I do
racing.
my
They
self-employment
obviously don't
taxes.
even
That's
need them, but
hilarious.
that is negligent. You don't need that car if you're doing that with it. One. But
It's
at the same time,
irresponsible.
yeah, completely irresponsible. But I will say, I believe in your freedom. Somebody wants to send it a couple times, let's see what happens. Hey, look, I get it. All right. Kids will be kids. But start abusing that, and all of a sudden we're talking like 6, 7, 8 times. Come on, you son of a bitch. You know what you're doing. Okay? You don't deserve that shit. You didn't earn that.
I see.
I think that that little bit of added risk is gonna I think it's important. But if it's
You never
too
know what
much, I
things
mean
can be
shit.
considered tax deductible until you look
I'm
at
just
your
gonna
receipts.
keep it
Oh,
real. If we're too strict on it, all of a sudden you're gonna start seeing street racing turn to shootouts. And I don't want it too strict. It's just gotta be a little bit of risk.
Makes
Okay.
sense to me.
Yeah. Honestly, you're not wrong.
And I think we should start at a lower number, and then based on how often this is actually happening, I think it would be wise to bump it up a little bit, because same thing, right? If all of a sudden, because the racers are going to know, if all of a sudden, they're getting a bunch of people caught out of the blue, and there's like, let's say 5 or 4, whatever the number is, and they're like, oh shit, they're going to start getting real aggressive real early. So what we need to do is, okay, we see this is happening. PD liaison's job, me, I'll see there's a lot of street racing charges going out. Hey, I'm going to be wise here, and we're going to meet them in the middle. Let's take that 5 and let's move it up to 6 or 7 or an 8 or whatever.
Now, isn't your goal at the end of this number to take the car permanently, or do you want to just impound it for a set period of time?
I think it should be taken permanently.
Put their car in car jail.
Yeah, their car is going to be a lifer.
What?
Yeah.
So sad.
I don't want.
Oh my
cars are meant
God.
to be driven, not sit in prison for life.
Now, if that car is doing crime,
Was the car doing crime, or were
Fair.
people doing crime?
Oh God.
Cornwood, come on.
okay, it's
Cornwood.
people. It's
What?
people. I get that.
Okay,